because they have to be divisive, because a lot of these people, they're not very intelligent. They're really young, they're really dumb, they have no clue what they're talking about, they have no life experience. So, last time we went over the Fox News versus Antiwork interview, which was just a disaster of an interview where both sides were not listening to each other. Although, like I said, Jesse Waters was mostly strawmanning because he didn't actually know what he was talking about, because he actually just looked at the title, which was a stupid title, because Antiwork is a stupid title, and just went from there. Now, we're going to talk about the fallout from that interview and what became about it. And as I've always said, as soon as the neoliberals start coming out, they ruin everything. Now, you got some actual leftists, too, that also ruin everything. But I'll show you in a second what I mean by you got the neoliberal cult moving in and destroying everything they touch. Now, I'm not going to go out to the fallout and destruction of Antiwork with the whole Doreen thing. If you want to look that up, you can, Short Fat Otaku was a good video breaking that down, because that's not the point of this video. Although, I do have to laugh at the whole, I will now be abolishing all work, and then also say I'm an anarchist, because those two ideas are completely opposed to each other. You can't be for abolishing work and be an anarchist. Those are two different things. The people who actually want, like the crazy people who actually want to abolish work are hilarious to me, because I always have to ask them, and how many slaves would you like, massa? Because you can't say nobody should be able to work, and then also be able to live some kind of comfortable life where you get to do whatever you want. You can't have those two positions at once. Essentially, what you're advocating for is basically slavery. Now, what happened was, there was basically a mess in Antiwork, which caused, and I'm not going to go over the drama, because again, you got another video that goes over that, which then goes, or causes people to move towards work reform. Now, once everybody moves to work reform, they basically go into full ideological purification. And this is why I say neoliberals ruin everything. Well, right now you have a huge conflict between the moderates and conservatives who are also for work reform, who do think people are overworked and underpaid, versus the bunch, and the actual leftists that want that. And then you had the neoliberals coming in, and the complete cultist leftists, the actual leftists, but they're just completely brainwashed in a cult, showing up, yeeting everybody who's moderate or to the right, because, as I will show you, some of them literally believe you cannot be right-wing and pro-worker. And a lot of them are young and dumb and insulated in a bubble. This is why a bunch of them were Biden voters. And I brought up earlier that the reason they're so fucked in this economy that was destroyed by the boomers was because of people like Biden. But these people have a memory of politics of like 2 years. What, maybe, okay, sorry, to be generous, 2016 was when they started politics. But let me show you where right now, in work reform, there's this big argument going on between the leftists and neoliberals and the moderates and the conservatives that are trying to find common ground, because there's always that one group that wants to come in and divide you and make sure you don't work together. And that, for the most part, isn't coming from the right. You have those on the right that want to make sure any unity between left and right does not happen. But mostly that is coming from the left right now. This is why you have a bunch of leftists who legitimately think Jimmy Dore is right-wing, because he has a split audience. They never stop to think that maybe he has a split audience because both left and right despise this corporate oligarchy kind of establishment thing we have going on that's just basically been pushing everybody down. That speaks to everybody who doesn't like that, so he gives a split audience, but because they see right-wingers there, they think he's right-wing, and that's just going to inherently continue to divide left and right to make sure no change happens. And I want to show you a post right here that shows this perfectly. Because you can see by the upvotes and awards that this was clearly a popular sentiment here. But you'll also see where the fighting comes in. So, let me go through this. Turning people away from our movement because of party lines is a luxury we can't afford. And I would extend that to the populist movement in general. This is why I said, stop attacking people that can unify left and right over something. You can work with people you don't like, and you don't have to necessarily cede ground to them. If you both agree on we want to fix this problem, but we have different solutions afterwards. Start to fix the problem, and then work on and then you can argue and debate about the solutions, and you can have votes and figure this stuff out, right? But anyway, even if only 10% of people interested in our movement are conservative, that's still a difference between 900,000 and 1 million people. And for the love of God, don't use alphabet people as an excuse for not working together. Let's face it, most of the people turning conservatives away just think that conservatives are stupid. Yes, they go, conservatives are dumb, racist, like, they have no clue. They think they're anti-worker. They think conservatives are anti-union. There's some saying there are no conservatives in unions, which if you've ever been in a union, that's not true. And they think anti-union means anti-collective bargaining, because I fucking hate unions, but that's because I've dealt with a lot of nonsense in unions. I know how they work. And basically, I've always been an advocate of use your collective ability. But the problem with unions is you become over-collectivized and they promote mediocrity. Well, like I said, it depends on the union. It varies wildly. But generally, I'm not a fan of unions. But if people want to unionize, that is their free choice to do so. Now, moving on. I'm a transgender lesbian too. Transgender, I'm a lesbian too. I want everyone to join our movement. I don't care if they hate my guts. This is the real world, not a team game on the playground. A group of 10 will be able to do more than a group of 9. When you're more concerned with ideological purity than pragmatics, you risk destroying the movement from inside. Knock it off. Now, you can see it got a lot of upvotes and a lot of awards. However, you had the leftists coming out and saying, you know, we can't have this, right? They would rather destroy themselves than say, okay, we can work with the right. Because a lot of these people, you have some leftists in here, but a lot of them were a lot of neoliberals coming in here. They're saying, in order to be pro-worker, you have to vote for the Democrats. In order to destroy the oppression of working class minorities, you vote for the Democrats, which is mind-blowing to me that you would think that, but because, you know, like I said, you got these white liberal types, they love to throw black people in the way of things that have nothing to do with us a lot of the time, because they try to like to use us as their shield. But I'm like, you have to vote for the party that has destroyed the working class. I'm not saying Republicans are better, keep that in mind, but I'm saying you want to vote for the party that does the same thing. They'll just tell you they're not doing it, because Republicans will just tell you they're doing it. Democrats will say, we're totally not doing it, and then go do it. Like I said, a lot of these people, young and dumb. But, because in large groups, they ruin everything they touch. So then afterwards, after the backlash, they say, you know what, fuck this. I actually care about this movement. This movement is something that I thought we could all agree on. But no, apparently y'all want to kick out conservatives because they haven't read enough theory or whatever. I'm done. Leftism is about more than ideas, it's about action. And if people are willing to take action with us, and you reject that, you're fucking stupid. I'm done with this subreddit fucking ideologues. Now, in terms of working towards work reform, this is probably somebody I'd want to work with. We can sit there because, like, for me, I live in LA. I'm friends with a huge political spectrum. I am friends with, like, full-blown socialists, and we can sit down and agree on ways that we need to stop what the government's doing to exploit, you know, poor working class people and just extracting their wealth and giving it to the billionaires. Then, where we tend to argue is where we want these solutions to come from. They want more top-down solutions. I want more decentralized free market solutions. But my friends are actually intelligent socialists and understand the difference between corporatism and capitalism. A lot of these people in here conflate corporatism and capitalism as the same thing. They are not the same thing. What happened was the boomers grew up in a much more free market capitalist environment. They got to grab wealth, and these were the hippies. They didn't believe in a word they said. These were the hippies, right? So they got their money. The boomers got rich, they climbed the corporate ladder, and then they used the leverage of government to pull the ladder up behind them. These boomers didn't get scammed by things like government-funded college, and I don't mean like free community college. I mean giving out loans from the government to colleges for worthless degrees that they know you won't get a job or be able to pay off, so you remain in debt. Things like adding on credit scores, which are complete scams. They're basically China social credit scores, but for being financially irresponsible. I remember when I first got into taking out a loan, because I'm a pretty big proponent of not spending money I don't have. But I had to once for school. I had to get a computer. I took out the loan for it. I paid it off 5 months early. And then, what's it called? I get a notice 8 months later that my credit score was then docked because I wasn't taking out more debt. These are things implemented by boomers. If you go bankrupt, you know those student loans don't go away. Your medical debt doesn't go away. Who did that? That was Biden. So I understand why the millennials are mad. But the problem is they think they're some kind of resistance, but they're siding with the people who did this. And the most upvoted comment shows exactly what I'm talking about. Why is half this sub arguing to include right-wing conservatives, then comments explaining that the US right-wing politics are literally ideologically opposed to the workers' rights movement, and then edit them from OP saying, fuck off, I quit, because conservatives' ideas are not inherently anti-worker. There are Republicans who are anti-worker. There are Democrats who are anti-worker. They'll just tell you they're not. Then you have more middle ground approaches, like, while I agree the Republican Party can't be salvaged, many of their voters can be. This is the best way to get through to talking to them about getting their fair share at work. Yeah, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are both trash that have upheld systems of oppression in America for how long? And before anyone goes, I'm making that a race thing. No, I've already said everyone's oppressed in America. You don't have rights here. Because name me a president, name me one president that actually listened to the Constitution full on and didn't violate it at all. Because I can't think of one that has. They've all gone against what they've said they stand for and what the rules of this nation are. This is why I sort of agree with Michael Malice when he said the Constitution's a load of crap. Not in principle, but in practice, because nobody listens to them. The problem is probably this is changing Republicans to vote Democrat, and it's like, no. Me personally, I've been pushing Republicans to go more libertarian while upholding their social views, which they abandoned for votes. But you can at least say that can go both ways. Totally agree. Conservatives hate workers' rights. Have you ever seen a conservative union workplace? Yeah, I'm in Cali, and yeah. This is why I question how much work experience a lot of these people have. A lot of unions turned for Trump in 2020. Again, these are straw mans that conservatives are anti-union. They're not. I don't like unions, but again, I've brought up why I don't like unions. Well, I didn't go into it in depth, but it's because there's a lot of problems with how they function. But I've always been an advocate for collective bargaining and withholding your labor if you think you're being treated unfairly. That's not the same thing as unionization, because unionization over-collectivizes, so individuals with better merit cannot rise to the top. Because a lot of times promotions will be based on seniority and not performance, and you'll be locked out of pay raises because basically you have to collectively get pay raises. Again, depending on the union. So you have to get the raise for the lazy motherfucker that don't do anything, even though you're busting your ass. You both have to get a raise, which is retarded. And again, it depends on the union. These activists are just lazy and entitled. I'm the hardest worker here and I don't complain. Yeah, I've always said that's a toxic attitude that people shouldn't have, especially in America. I brought up last video that it was a major problem I have with you know, people's work ethic in the US is they overwork and get underpaid, especially if you've looked at production versus wages in the past 70 years, I believe it's no 60 years. Anyway, on the off chance they agree on a policy solution that supports workers' rights, then I would work with them on that very specific solution. Remember, we all hate the elites, but conservatives usually point to Soros, Mexicans, queer people, and other culture-based issues that obscure the real solutions to labor's rights. That is a straw man, and again, this is why I said this is someone who's never been in right-wing circles, as I have spent most of my time in right-wing circles. If you're I'm gonna assume you, with the whole Mexicans thing, you mean illegal immigration, driving down wages? That's true. Same with the mistake that was the big push in the 50s to push women into the workforce, which completely doubled the labor market overnight and collapsed wages. So now you have to work 2 jobs and leave your child in child care and state-funded childcare where they're getting taught a lot of nonsense. And point to queer people, I have no clue what you're talking about there. The right's gone full-blown alphabet. Agree on solutions, not problems. Be solution-oriented. You can agree on problems and solutions. You just don't have to agree on all solutions. But if both sides agree on the major problem, let's deal with the problem first, argue about our solutions later. Right? Dividing people up makes them weak. And here's what I say. Here comes the neoliberals, drank the Kool-Aid type people. The best point I've read so far, my initial reaction was to say, let the Republicans have a voice here, but they'll soon realize they need to vote Democrat for pro-labor policies to get implemented. As I've just brought up, these idiots voted for Biden. They don't know anything about, because a lot of these people have a history of politics going back to 2016, as I've said. My family got destroyed by the 2008 financial crisis. Thank you, Biden, for bailing out the banks. My friend lost their house and are still struggling in an apartment to this day. Me and my mom got hit by that economic crash from that, where to the point where when I was in high school, we were digging through trash for cans and eating canned food out of the trash in order to get extra meals. That was Obama and Biden. The Democrats are now or never have been pro-labor. They are pro-elite and pro-corporatist, just as the Republicans are. This is a bunch of corporatists versus populists, not left versus right. Like I said, neocons who want to help the elites, the better part about them is at least they're honest about it. They'll just say, yeah, we're gonna, implement X, Y, or Z to help big business. They'll just say it. Democrats will sit there and say, we're totally not doing this and we're pro-worker, and then they vote for it. Republicans will not think that way. They will advocate for low corporate taxes to pay workers more, right-to-work laws that undermine unions. It's best to not give Republicans a voice here, and then you lost me. Because their solutions have been proven to be anti-labor. So dig yourself deeper into an echo chamber, and then take the populist movement and essentially split it in half. That is a great strategy. I hope that works out for you, but it's not going to work, my guy. See, again, here is more neoliberal Kool-Aid. Look, I'll just do half of this one because there's just one point I want to make. Listen, I want more allies, the more the better. But if we want conservatives to join our movement, they're going to have to give us a bunch of assurances that they'll stop voting down ticket for the politicians who are waging an active war against the working class. Further down, if they aren't prepared to cut ties with their political ideology and vote Democrat, progressive, leftist to help us fight for change, we don't want them, need them. So don't vote down ticket, but vote down ticket for the other side that will do the same thing, because none of y'all pay attention. And this is what I said. Once it moved to work reform, it became a lot less of funny posts telling bosses to fuck off, and saying, we won't work for you if you don't pay us enough, which is free market capitalism working. Then say, vote for the party that destroyed the economy in 2008 and is still destroying the economy right now. And don't get me wrong, Trump absolutely contributed to this upward transfer of wealth. But why would you say vote Democrat? Because Democrats went the hardest on lockdowns, which contributed to the upward transfer of wealth. That's why I said this is a bunch of neoliberal nonsense. Well, of course, once the move happened, they weaseled their way in here and they wrecked it. Because they have to be divisive, because a lot of these people, they're not very intelligent. They're really young, they're really dumb, they have no clue what they're talking about, they have no life experience. Like I said, I'm in LA. You get a ton of different perspectives here, and from every sort of racial community too. So, like I said, if you're in Cali and you're actually open-minded and listen, you start to learn a lot of the different, political perspectives. This is why I always break up leftists from neoliberals, because I'm like, they're not the same. But like I said, now a lot of work reform will just die because, again, a bunch of neolibs came in and they said, we have to yeet all conservatives, because I know nothing of conservative ideology, conservatism, libertarianism, or any of that. And I just don't like them because of straw men I've heard on the news. This is exactly what happened with defund the police. That fell apart because not only did it have a stupid name, but neoliberals saw it. They were like, hey, this is a popular position. And then what did the neoliberals do? They all try to one-up each other, and it became abolish the police. And nobody took that shit seriously. They thought it meant take police off the street, which it did not mean that. It was about reallocating funding so we didn't have to send police to areas they were not prepared to deal with, like, again, mental health issues. And perverted it into some crazy thing that was overtly just leftist nonsense. This is why I've always said the group that destroys the country is neoliberals. It's not leftists, because neoliberals cover for leftists, because neoliberals think they're leftists, and they just say things that, you know, they think will be popular. They call themselves Marxists because they think it's popular, but they don't know anything about Marxist philosophy. This is why they'll say they're pro-worker and pro-ending systemic racism and all this stuff, and then they vote for Biden, the guy who mass incarcerated black people, destroying the black community, and then also destroyed the economy in 2008 and is doing so again right now. And saying that's the pro-worker party you should be voting for. So it was fun while it lasted, but now that this has totally been destroyed by neoliberals again, what are you gonna do except hope maybe Democrats make everything so bad eventually there's no choice but for the populace to finally unite? But you always have those partisan hacks on YouTube who go to seek to defy any leftist that will work with the right and any right-winger that will work with the left. What are you gonna do? Social engineering is a bitch to deal with.